As you guys know, Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa on the Republican ticket, and the current mayor of New York, Eric Adams, are running up against our boy, Zohran Kwame Mamdani. Now, Zohran Kwame Mamdani is, according to the new New York Times Siena poll that just came out, basically beating everybody else on every single metric, every possible demographic by a landslide, or at worst, tied for the first in his weakest categories, which is older people, okay? And what has Andrew Cuomo, who's supposed to be like the guy that is going to try and beat Zohran Mamdani after he lost in the primaries, what has he thought about doing as a line of attack? What has he thought about attacking Zohran Mamdani over, who's the current frontrunner? His connections to a popular Twitch streamer who has been supporting him from the initial stages of the primary. That connection to said popular Twitch streamer has actually played a role in him beating Andrew Cuomo in the primary. Not like a super significant role, but somewhat of a role. So not sure exactly why he thought this would be a fantastic own. But that's right. Andrew Cuomo has decided to play the association game with Zohran Mamdani. Who are those other people? Victims of Hassan Piker? Yeah, I assume, I don't know anything about this press conference because I didn't see it. I only saw this originally, and it launched me into orbit. But I suspect it's like 9/11 first responders and their children or something. But in any case, it is pretty funny that America's most important city's mayoral race has gotten so completely out of control that they're basically trying to do like internet beef. That is where we're at. Lamont, I work in office with David Friedlander. Shouts out to David Friedlander, who apparently asked Andrew Cuomo at this presser, because he's the one who actually took the photo and sent it. But shouts out to David, who asked him about his horrible numbers. As soon as I saw this, I immediately sent this photo to a bunch of my friends and said, this is fantastic. And then I also tweeted, great campaign, Mr. Cuomo, with this New York Times Siena poll that just came out. Zohran Mamdani leads by 22 points in a four-way general election. Mamdani is most trusted on affordability, housing, Israel, Palestine, and crime, taxes, dealing with the Trump administration, leads all racial groups, plus 4 out of the 5 boroughs. If the field holds, he wins. So while this is going on, and this is a horrible day to be Andrew Cuomo, horrible numbers coming out, what is he choosing to do? This. If this is your exit ramp, if this is what you think is going to, move your numbers, improve your numbers, if this is what's going to carry you across the finish line, you are delusional. Because 2 reasons, okay? 2 reasons. Number 1, nobody knows who I am, you idiot. No one knows. I try to repeat this to like extremely online people all the time, people that come in here and even members of my own community. I'm like, guys, for the most part, people know me as like, oh, that progressive guy. Okay. That's it. If they know who I am, especially amongst like the normie crowd, they just kind of know me as the progressive guy. Okay. And they have a rather positive association with me. Now, of course, there are a lot of negative associations with someone like myself. Negative associations coming from incredibly Zionist groups. If you are super, super invested in Israel, then yeah, you're going to know who I am and you're going to have a negative opinion of me. If you are a dedicated Fox News watcher, you might have maybe seen who I am and you might not like who I am. But even then, it's not super relevant overall. And then, of course, last but not least, it's like the extremely online people, but they never go outside and they never vote. So it doesn't really matter. And he is so desperately trying to farm this and trying to do this in a way. But here's the funniest thing. If this were to ever become a real problem, which it's not, all Zohran needs to do is say, I don't know him. I did a podcast with him because he has a massive platform and it worked. And I don't know him and I don't like him. Okay, what now? You know what I mean? Oh no. All he needs to do is Jeremiah Wright my ass in the same way that Barack Obama did to Reverend Wright. I do personally find it funny that this is another op that I have that is a sex criminal. Oh my God. Regular New Yorker seeing a picture of Hassan. I don't even know who you are. Yeah. Can you imagine a regular ass New Yorker being like, wow, this guy sure sucks. Can't believe Zohran did an interview with him. Like, the reason why this is such a stupid line of attack is because either nobody knows who I am, and that's the overwhelming majority of normies, or the people that do know who I am overwhelmingly are on the younger side, they're already very pro-Zoran. And part of the reason why they're pro-Zoran is because they might have even seen Zoran and myself communicate on this fairly successful Twitch stream that we conducted early on in his campaign. So who is this for is the question I have. I'm imagining a guy, okay, from one of these like demographics that Zoran is like really cleaning, right? Like a 34-year-old who's like, I really love fast and free buses. And I really think that it's cool that Zoran, was saying like, I'm not going to go to Israel. I am the mayor of New York. Why would I go to Israel? I thought all that stuff was cool. But wait a minute. Am I seeing that right? He's hanging out with HasanAbi Piker? Well, that's it for me. Time to vote for Andrew Cuomo, I guess. Like, that's so stupid. And of course, he had been asked about this already by, once again, a Zionist group that was, hammering this early on in the primaries. And he said, I'll go anywhere. I'll talk to anybody. Ultimately, this is just red meat for my haters online who will be like, your association is a negative one with Zoran. It's like, well, I already associated with him and he won the primaries. I did my job, okay? He was in an incredibly crowded field, and myself and many others in our little sphere of influence recognized that he was a cut above. There were plenty of good candidates there as well, but my job is done. We already brought him into the primary. From this point on, it's just not, you can't be like, oh, your association is like hurting his reputation. It's like, no, he's good. Now, of course, the other side of this, too late, too little too late. The other side of the story that I think is of course interesting is that if we were to talk about associations, Andrew Cuomo is associated with the entirety of the Trump orbit, Trump himself, and also Benjamin Netanyahu. Like, what are you talking about? There's no comparison. Oh, wow. This guy hung out with the Twitch streamer who said America's actions in the Middle East was what caused 9/11 to happen, okay, in 2019. Wow. You got him. Ultimately, that is nothing in comparison to Andrew Cuomo's long list of genuinely vile associates, especially from the perspective of New Yorkers. Can't Ever Die says, they're calling this the greatest campaign ever devised. Campaigns like this have a base of entirely 60-plus-year-olds who will see this and immediately move on. The average Cuomo voter has never heard of any leftist online personalities law. Exactly. All this does, for me at least, is, I guess, increase my visibility. It doesn't do anything to Zoran in general. And if it ever even got to like a serious point for them, all he could do is just say, I don't know him. I'm not associated with him in any way. And that's it. That's all he has to do in that situation. Now, I don't think he should do that. Once again, in a way, it's not that different from the whole like not backing down from the globalize the intifada message, right? Because like his original assessment there was correct. This only becomes like, I mean, it'll never become like a real problem, but this only becomes even like a blip on anyone's radar if you make it. This is not a real thing. This is not a real point of contention. It's not a real point of contention at all. You're killing it. You're cooking. And your association with a massively popular streamer that is massively popular by the standards of like a lot of Zoran's base of support is not going to be a negative for you. Okay. Hey, you know that massively popular streamer who's beloved by millions and resonates with Gen Z? He supports the other guy. Yeah, this association is not a negative one. It's a positive one. And I'm not just saying that because I'm me. I think it only becomes an issue if you make it an issue. But he might, who knows? I mean, he has appeared squeamish at times when it comes to like Israel related things every now and then because he thinks that will stop people from yelling at him. Hasan, I think it's a big issue for Zoran. It's not. The reason why it's not a big issue is because most people don't know who the fuck I am. And the ones that do are already like either door knocking for Zoran or have voted for Zoran. Like, it comes down to this, and I mean this. I am not glazing my own self when I say this. I think I am a more popular figure in New York City than Andrew Cuomo. This is not to say that I am more known than Andrew Cuomo. Of course, Andrew Cuomo is a much more visible, much more known person. He's also a hated person in New York City. Do I have my share of haters in New York City? Certainly. But the number of people who like me is far larger than the number of people who hate me in New York City specifically. And I would say that it is a reversal for Andrew Cuomo. A lot more people know who he is, and a lot more people don't like him than do like him. And I would go so far as to say that if we went band for band in terms of how many people would be willing to go out to a rally or a meetup that I set up, me versus Andrew Cuomo, there would be more people showing up to mine than his. Do you see what I mean? He was endorsed by Wendy Turigi, who became an EMT after the attack. She added his opponent Zohran Mamdani, proudly associated with Hassan Piker, a man who said America deserved 9/11. To families like mine, that's not politics, that's life and death. His association with Hassan Piker qualifies him to serve at any role for New York City, let alone as important as mayor. I'm calling on Zohran Mamdani to disavow Hassan Piker and his hateful words. Like the whole, like, he needs to disavow Hassan Piker. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? This is yet again another instance where are you going to let the reactionary group, the reactionary entity in this race, Andrew Cuomo, backed by Donald Trump, lead the conversation? Okay, disavow this person, condemn that person. If you get into this game, it's not going to be good for you because you're constantly going to have another person that comes after you. That's why I have said before, the whole like sister soldier or the reverent right, like that stuff in the past didn't work either, but Democrats would love doing that. This is a new meta. This is a new dawn. It is a new day. Also, I like the implication that I did 9/11. Like, these people make it seem as though I was familiar with the matters, and like the subtle implication is like I participated in 9/11, like I did it. In 2017, Cuomo stood side by side with Sal to sign legislation granting unlimited sick leave to responders battling illnesses from the service. That day, they rode motorcycles together to honor 9/11 first responders to symbolize resilience, solidarity, and progress. I know firsthand what kind of leader Andrew Cuomo is. Wendy Turturici said, as governor, he fought to secure benefits to 9/11 families. He treated our community with the respect and dignity we deserve. That's the kind of leadership New York City needs again. She added his opponent, Zohran Mamdani, proudly associated with Hassan Piker, a man who said America deserved 9/11. To families like mine, that's not politics, that's life and death. It's crazy to just be like, yeah, dude, you love 9/11. You might have done 9/11, and is really up that Zohran is associated with this guy who like is responsible for 9/11. It's also pure racism through and through, but it's an act of desperation overall. And once again, in this act of desperation, it only has as much motion as the popular candidate in the field, Zohran Mamdani, gives it. It only has as much motion as Zohran Mamdani breathes life into it. Cuomo keeps his remarks to benefits for 9/11 victims, saying Mamdani's inexperience is dangerous in the case of terrorist attacks. Families are still living with the pain, and families will still endure the loss from 9/11. Should Zohran respond? And if so, how do you think? Look, I have no way of figuring out exactly how he's going to communicate through this, but the best possible thing would be to just never even respond to this at all. And if you ever were forced to respond to this in like a moment where someone, you know, they sent like a, I don't know, like a provocateur or something, then they caught you when you were doing like a presser or some the best possible response would be like, what are you talking about? This is a popular media figure. He's a leftist. Of course I'm going to go on a stream. Like, if we're going to talk about the association game, Andrew Cuomo is associated with Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump. So he's both bad on domestic affairs and bad on foreign policy as well. My association with a progressive Twitch streamer using Fox News lines of attack is so insane, but yet another clear-cut example that Andrew Cuomo is a right-winger and running to spoil this race. That's it. I want to improve people's lives in New York. This kind of silly back and forth is a simple distraction for a campaign that is failing, for a campaign that is failing for good reason, because they do not care about New Yorkers, and New Yorkers have already responded by voting for me, Zohran Mamdani, over Andrew Cuomo. Excited to see all the worst humans online start backing Andrew Cuomo because of this. Yeah, it's a unique moment. Like I said, at worst, this would turn into like Hassan's association with politicians is bad, when it's not. But they will try online in the little world that we live in, where no normie actually broaches that side of the internet. It'll make it seem as though my association with Zohran Mamdani was a boon, was a burden, was a negative and not like a positive one. And that's it. And they'll just recirculate that bullshit back and forth over and over again with the hopes that, Zohran will disavow or condemn or something. Not Boone, sorry, Bane. Like I said, even if Zohran were to come out and be like, yeah, I don't know this guy, f him. I disavow Hassan Piker. It doesn't bother me beyond the fact that I think it's bad instincts. It's not dissimilar to me being critical of him backing away from like the globalize the intifada message. It's showing me that it's very like he's more susceptible to the squishy liberal optics, maybe a little too much, and in a way that actually doesn't translate to strength and leadership. We don't live in that era. We don't live in that age. We don't live in that era. Do you guys understand what I mean, by the way? Because it's like association with someone like myself, a niche online left figure, either seen as like a major positive for those in the know, like a lot more people have a positive association with that than a negative one, or they just like are completely oblivious and think like, why the is this a big deal? Like, what are you talking about? Like, they're trying to make this a big deal. But the problem is you must be extremely online to think that this would be a big deal association. Do you see what I mean? I don't have enough motion and broad mainstream disapproval for this to actually stick. For the most part, my mainstream appeal is positive, regardless of how much the ADL comes after me and attacks me with regular frequency. Andrew Cuomo standing next to a sign that says in big letters, America deserved 9/11 with no additional context other than the photo of a Twitch streamer that most regular New Yorkers have never heard of. What a fantastically run campaign. Exactly. It's so stupid. Like, you do this only if you like want to attack me, not even Zoran. Because the counter here is so easy for Zoran to just be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, at most. Do you see what I mean? 99% of retweets have just been laughing at this. I know, but that doesn't matter because Zoran's assessment might be a little bit different. Originally, this is what was brought up in the mayoral town hall from a Zionist group that asked him about this already, because this is like something that the ADL has been trying to farm off of Zoran over and over again.
In the last 24 hours, that social media comments, activist slogans actually can lead to what happened last night in Washington, D.C. We've reported at Jewish Insider that you've gone on the show of a podcaster, a popular podcaster on the left named Hassan Piker, who has justified Hamas's October 7th, 2023 terror attacks. Said it didn't matter if rapes occurred on October 7th on his show on a number of occasions. You've been on his show. Do you regret going on that show? And especially in the light of last night's murder of the Israeli embassy staff, is that type of rhetoric responsible in our public discourse?
I think that one of the lessons I learned from the Democratic Party's failures in this previous election is an inability to use every single platform and avenue to communicate with as many people as possible.
Yeah, the framing is also crazy racist, making it seem like I'm responsible for the DC shooting once again. This is double for someone like Zoran because he's not a white boy either, you know? I mean, they're lying about my takes. That's fine. They always do. What are you going to do? Who cares, right? Like, any attack in this vein that is directed in my direction can absolutely be implemented against Zoran in the exact same way because of our similar backgrounds. So it's a even more unique position for someone like him because, once again, he's brown, he's Muslim, he's even more visibly Muslim than I am, right? And he's a socialist. And also, he has spent a very long time doing very visible pro-Palestinian advocacy. So any kind of line of attack that bastardizes my assessment, my commentary, my analysis can very easily be directed at him as well. He's in a really unique position here, in a really unique predicament where saying like, oh, this guy is bad and wrong, they can just as easily turn around and say, okay, well, here's something you've said. Here's a group that you've started, Students for Justice for Palestine in Bowdoin College. And this is the exact line of attack that won't really actually harm his chances, as it didn't in the primary. It's not going to in the general either, unless this is the only thing that he is constantly tasked with responding. Stop giving them ideas. No, I'm not. I'm not giving them ideas. I'm telling them exactly how this works because I saw it happen with Corbyn.
Desire to only speak to journalists and podcast hosts with whom you have agreement on every single issue. And I think that much of that conversation pertained to discussions around whether or not people should appear on Joe Rogan. But I think it is part of a broader conversation around politics as a manner of purity, when I think politics should also be an avenue to engage as many people as possible. And so to me, I do not have regrets of speaking to any interviewer, to any journalist, to any podcaster, because ultimately...
Yeah, Corbyn conceded early that there was anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, and it was all that he was asked about for 5 years. He was cooked, which is ironic because the Tories on the other side, for those 5 years, were doing unimaginably anti-Semitic, like almost directly aligning with the EDL, like all these other groups. They put a statue of Nancy Astor up to celebrate her. She literally said Hitler was right about the Jews. Like, a person who said that was celebrated by the Tory government at the time when everybody was like, Jeremy Corbyn's a real anti-Semite. Like, we've seen this already. We've seen how this works. taking on the oppositional framing in this situation and conceding to their framing unironically makes this a larger issue for progressives, for the left, for Democrats as well. This is the same exact technique that right-wing groups apply with regular frequency. They're doing this. This is a right-wing group, it's a Zionist group, and they're doing this to Zoran right here. And he, dances around it and does a decent job. I don't expect him to just be like, Hasan is my favorite content creator. I love him. I am defending him unconditionally. That's not my expectation at all, right? And it's not even about loyalty or anything like that. I don't give a shit. Like I said, put the policy in the bag, okay? Put the policy in the bag, little bro. That's all I care about. You're a politician. You're elected. I want you to be a good mayor. I want you to actually help the people of New York. I want you to help the working class of New York. I want you to make things more affordable. I want you to have a more robust public transit. That's what I care about.
My message is consistent in all of those mediums. And it's a message that I want to have reach as many people as possible while making clear what my values are and my statements are.
Given that comment, do you have a responsibility then when you go on a show like that to say, Hasan, your comments about Hamas, your comments about October 7th are unacceptable. I reject them. And if so, why haven't you said that to his face and on his show?
I think that my words speak for themselves. In the context of that, I think about 3.5-hour interview, I made very clear where I stood. And I think this is something that I have sought to embody throughout my career as a consistency. And I think that my actions, my words, even in that interview, spoke for themselves. But it is all.
But this was in the primary. Those questions are ridiculous anyway. If you recall, the Zionist advocacy groups have one speed. They try to do this in France as well to Mélenchon's party. They try to do this in France and Mélenchon's party. And their response was so clear. It was the best possible response I've ever heard from any politician. Okay? Zoran pivoted here. In France, the dude straight up said, you guys literally say everyone's a anti-Semite if they are anti-genocide. Are you anti-genocide? He redirected it back. He said, there's a genocide going on. Are you anti-genocide? Why do you never ask people if they're anti-genocide or not? You say this to anyone that has ever said anything mean about Israel. That's the perfect response. You say this to everybody. And the reason why that's a perfect response is because not only is it true, but also a lot of other people, if you're running in a popularity contest, like a election, you want to say that's going to come across as popular, okay? And virtually everyone, regardless of their position, unless they're super duper pro-Israel, and they're never going to vote for Zoran anyway if they are super duper pro-Israel, has felt this. They've seen this. Even if they themselves are not visible public figures, they have seen, they've sensed the attitude coming from mainstream outlets, coming from institutions where it's like, don't say anything about Israel. Don't say it. You see the dead children? Don't say a goddamn thing, or else we'll say you're anti-Semitic. We'll ruin your life. And that has gotten so out of hand that the average person is aware of this attitude. Okay?
Always helpful to hear feedback as to what I have said, how I have engaged, and to always understand what it could look like in the future.
Has what happened?
Anyway, they're just leaning on Islamophobia. That's it. Zoran is Muslim. They're trying to be like, yeah, Muslim guy kind of did 9/11. His people did 9/11. Remember 9/11? His people did it. Do you want an insider to do 9/11 again? Like that type of, that's basically what they're doing. They're just hitting the racism line.